Okay, well, welcome everyone to our second session of Intuitive Improv and Collective Wisdom. And I actually would like to get started tonight and I think, unless I'm wrong, tell me if I'm wrong. I think everyone that's here tonight was here last week. Yes, I believe so. Yeah. So what I'd like to hear is did our topic and nuggets of wisdom of answering the call come up for you over the week? And were you able to kind of share maybe some of the wisdom that came up um, uh, when it did arise? And you can just, if you're ready, when you're ready, you can just unmute and share.
I'm going to be honest. You're probably, I'm not the only one thinking this problem. Like, I remembered all the stuff while I was there and probably kind of went out of my mind. I've had a busy week. So, I mean, I loved the last session and the energy and everything. That was really great. And I was looking forward to this one, and I'm sitting here thinking my notes are in the other room. So I can't even go look. Actually, I'm going to go get my notes.
All right. Sometimes it has to percolate a little while too.
I think I'm definitely feeling that, like the need to let it sit a little bit longer, because I think one of the things that I took away from last week was that it doesn't have to be action to be there. It can be very without action. And that's more of where I've been. It's been, like Danielle said, it's been a very crazy week. It's been a hectic week. So it's unfortunately been more so on the back burner. But I did feel a little differently about a career path that I'd like to take. So, or explore anyways. So it got me to kind of open up to not just being so reliant on my current position and the money that's great versus the fulfillment that I would receive in taking a position below me in a different career trajectory.
Yeah, it's kind of big. And
Well,
I also, the part for me too. Oh, go ahead, Danielle.
Oh, I was just gonna say I got my notes. I wrote down for me answering the call was love in all its many forms. And I don't know if I said that to everybody last time. I know I said it to, and I can't remember her name, but my partner that I did the little thing with. And I do feel like I actually did a thing on Saturday. My friend, his mom was dying, and I ended up taking him. Did that thing. So I think it's like somebody was saying as I was walking away, like just because it wasn't an active thing, I think it like plants the seed and like you're doing it anyway, even though you're not maybe making that connection. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, perfect sense. Because I think that's the wisdom, right? Because it's lived, right? And being able to sit and let it work through you, let the call, move through you, let it work through you.
I think one of the things that really connected with me last week that I was trying to implement, but I don't know that I really like, I think it's a process, right? It'll take time. But we talk so much about like being okay with the stillness and sitting in the stillness and maybe the silence. And that like clicked with me that I'm constantly just like filling my space with things. So I had a lot of instances this last week where I was like, okay, like, let's just sit with this. Let's try to just be and exist. Yeah, baby steps maybe.
Yeah, 100%.
To piggyback off of that, I have been clearing my schedule more, so I'm less busy. So that's something.
Anyone else have anything that came up? I know for me, I had like synchronicities in my in my reading, right? So the different things that I'm reading, and it kept coming up about, just to that whole thing about sitting with something, about being in stillness. And I was really thinking about, it's just like, so I actually have been feeling called. There's some new stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. So how about if I just sit and listen to what the call is, rather than quickly trying to fill in the blanks of what I think it might be. Yeah. And then just kind of jumping into action around that. My friend Leah has a great phrase that she uses. She calls it premature encapsulation, where you kind of take that first decision and you decide that's it, and then you encapsulate your idea and you move with it. All right. So, shall we move on with getting our theme for tonight? What we're going to be working with? Okay. And I just want to state also that, there are ways that, so if I call on you or ask something of you and you don't want to, you want to pass, that is totally just like, so, okay, right? And you can just even go, whatever, but you can totally pass on anything, or you can opt out of anything and give yourself full permission to do that whenever you feel like you want to. So that said, let's see. Okay. Ashley, would you like to pick our deck for tonight?
All right. Yeah.
All right. So our choices are the Universal Folk Oracle. Get a little closer. Whispers of Lord Ganesha. And Soulful Woman. So
Let's
just
go with
kind
the
of
first one.
the first one. Okay. Universal Folk Oracle. I'm also going to take a moment and I'm going to light a candle for us to help us kind of hold our space. And as I do this, it just kind of helps create a centering space for us, like even a little bit of an altar space for us here to hold. And then I'm also going to ask for that we all be able to really listen into what is arising, that we can hold the space for whatever does arise. I'm also going to ask that tonight we just also allow ourselves to have fun, just let ourselves play. Even if the topic turns out to be serious, that we can, just bring a lightness and a curiosity to whatever it is that we're going to lean into. All right. So it is. All right. So I'm gonna shuffle. Amanda, would you like to unmute and tell me when to stop?
Hmm.
Whoa.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's it.
That was
That's
it.
the
Oh,
one
it's
that
back
popped
in there
out.
now.
No, that's how it works for me. The one that
All
goes
right.
flying, that's the one.
That's right. Okay. You want me stopped now?
Yeah,
I
go
tucked
ahead.
it back in. I was really quick. That's
Well,
how I usually
I
do.
don't know.
Yeah.
It'll pop out again.
It will. If it's meant to
It'll
be,
be the
it
same one.
will. Yeah, because when I'm just choosing, I'll go with just that one. But okay.
Yeah.
Danielle, you want to tell me how many to count down to get to our card from the top or the bottom, whichever way you want.
Three from the bottom. I like that.
Three from the bottom. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Ooh. All right. So this card is Remembrance. Remembrance. Remembering love, loss, and healing. And she's got a little pussycat hood on and 2 kitties with her. She's got roses around her. It's number 29. So that's an 11 for anyone doing numerology, or a 2. If that means anything to you. Okay, I'm going to leave this out. Remembrance. Maybe I'll take a look at the book here too. It says, allow yourself time to reminisce today without preoccupation or judgment. And it says a lot more, but I think that's a really good, yeah. So let's allow ourselves time to reminisce today without preoccupation or judgment. What if I can ask, is like when you saw that card and you heard the remembrance, what was the first response or thought that floated up for you? Go ahead, Courtney.
The loss part, I just yesterday scheduled my almost 11-year-old dog's euthanasia appointment. And he's my baby. He's been with me through so many life changes, right? And I consider him one of my kids, right? And and at the same time, last week, my father was admitted to hospice. So there is a lot of this death and loss that is kind of concurrently happening. And that was what immediately flashed up. So being more in the now, right? And I think that's a very great reminder card of the healing that can come through loss, and the love that's ever pervasive. I think that's, you know, your physical being may transfer into the non-physical, but that love will always remain. It's just that the energy is shifted. So it's a great reminder for that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Holding you tomorrow as you move through that process. I'm sure many of us have had that experience or something similar in the past. And yeah. Anyone else? What immediately arose for you? And maybe it wasn't even a thought. Maybe it was a body sensation.
I think for me, it was, you know, almost like a warmness, like in my chest and my heart. Recently, I've been working a lot on like healing like parts of myself of like when I was in my 20s. And a lot has been kind of popping up, and actually like had a lot of fun. Maybe not the best kind of fun, but like a lot of fun. And I think recently Remembrance for me has been more remembering like how to have fun and like how to be playful and how to, you know, like maybe recreate in healthy ways some of that to kind of come back into my life.
Yeah.
I think I've been doing a lot of that too, like trying to remember, like kind of almost put myself in my childhood and be like, how did I feel and think and behave when I was a kid, you know? And how do I bring some of that into my adult life so it's less like, I don't know, less stodgy or something, less dry, more fun.
I've been similarly having that kind of thought process where I've realized that a lot of the things that I recall frequently from the past, they're like those big moments, right? So they're really like either very, very positive, very negative. And recently I've been thinking like, okay, what about the in between of just like the normalcy of the being? Like, what was that like when I was young and meeting everything with fresh eyes and trying to bring that back and feel those feelings again.
Geez, that I don't even know if I want to say this, but like I kind of fell in love with somebody and that's like really been weighing on me. But it's the same kind of thing. So I was married for almost 25 years. I got divorced, and this is the first real time this has happened since the divorce. So it's like, holy shit, did I feel like this before? Sorry for swearing, but
No, that's great.
it's yeah, it kind of like something you said, Brianna, like kind of triggered me to think like, oh yeah, this is a similar thing. Like I haven't really felt like this since like high school. So it's bizarre, I guess, but no, it's not horrible.
No.
I flashed back to my high school days, interestingly enough. And earlier today, and maybe even yesterday, I was having exactly that kind of conversation come up in me about just how to have fun, and what and back in the old days, I used to live in northern New Jersey, right across from New York. And it has a whole vibe about it, which is why I live here. And and that vibe, I was just kind of, what was that vibe about? How did I relate to that vibe? I mean, I don't have any answers, but it was interesting to kind of follow that path a little bit and see what came up. And then now we're having this conversation, which is really kind of blows my mind, actually.
Yeah, synchronicity at its best.
Yeah, when it's ready, it'll come up. For me, it brought up two things like really quickly. One is in my priestess training, we actually talk a lot about remembrance, and that's part of the job of a priestess, is actually to tap in and to remember, different whole ways of being and of rooting, right, and where we're from. And so that was the very first thing that arose. And then the second thing that arose really quickly was this memory of I was in the process of getting divorced. And there have been two times that spirit has spoken to me in like an audible way, right? Like there's someone else in the car with me. And I was driving to work and I had that experience, and the word was remember. It's just, and it was about kind of remembering who I am, right? It's just like remember who you are. And I actually like I pulled off and I was just like sobbing. I'm like, I'm crying. I was in a lot of pain at that point in my life, right? But I was just like kind of blubbering in that remembrance, trying to reconnect to after so many years of being underneath layers and layers of veils and protection, right? Yeah, to remember who you are.
Yeah, I definitely have had a lot of that going on, like trying to like pull myself back to myself, essentially, like recover who I was. Yeah.
Yeah, we've with my mom's health declining, she's made requests to go on some trips and to visit some places and things. And we've spent a lot of time kind of diving into kind of our history and our heritage of our family, genealogy and things. And, learning about the lives of the people that came before, doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and kind of also trying to figure out kind of who we are and where we are in all of that. Yeah, and so it's a lot of my time lately has been spent with that, stuff in that realm. And a lot of kind of really, and then there's, you know, of course, the impending grief, you know, and just kind of like that, the waiting, and kind of wrapping your head around that. And so, you know, there's spending the time together that we have and being present and etc. Yeah. So it's kind of a little bit of different things that everybody else has already talked about.
Hmm. Katie is home. Hi. I think it's interesting as I'm listening to that this, you know, we're talking about remembrance, but so much has been said about, you know, being present in the now with what we're experiencing now. Right. In this process of either remembrance or, you know, bringing forward, but also, and I think in some ways in preparing for what's to come.
Well, I think, you know, if in our case, there's that kind of like realization of being faced with, you know, the fragility of life and how short it is, and you know, you have that on the one aspect, and then on the other side it's like, well, I need to quit waiting, you know. It's like there's like that old saying, you know, it's like, don't wait to use the good china, you know, get it out and use it every day, you know. It's like,
Mhm.
so we've had a big insurgence of that, where it's like, you want to go do this, all right, let's do it, you know. And we're like packing our days full, and we're like being present, and like we're you know, not waiting for time off or whatever. We're just, you know, telling work, hey, we need to do this, because, you know, and making it happen, you know, because it's, you know, you're not promised tomorrow. So there's, and so that's kind of where like the being present is getting pushed from.
Mhm.
Yep, I feel like I'm doing a lot of that too. I feel like I'm just like, I like, my one friend has been helping me a lot with like a lot of healing. And yeah, if he's like, oh, hey, let's go do this thing randomly, we'll just be like, yep, we're just gonna go. Like I do this all the time now. Like this is not how I used to be, but it is how I am now. And I think there's a lot of power in that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I know certainly for me, like I've said this to several people, my summer, what I had envisioned my summer was going to look like, my summer is not turning out, not that we're there yet, right? But these things have landed that I'm just like, I'd have never dreamed I was going to be doing that this summer. You know, that just wasn't even anywhere on the radar. And I'm doing several things like that. And I'm just like, okay, okay, step in.
I mentioned the ecstatic dancing last week. I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing until like what, a couple months ago.
Yes. And it's so healing, right? You know, and it's to me there's a lot of freedom. When we give ourselves the space to say yes, right? To things that are opening up. A lot of freedom.
What
There's
is-
been
Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm wishing my partner from last week were here. She was speaking about being kind of the memory keeper for her family and sharing family stories with her grandchildren. And we were talking about that in terms of like being called to do something, and how that remembrance is a calling in and of itself, just to like sit with those memories or share those memories, or be the record keeper, albeit verbally or orally, or that kind of relational history. And I wish you were here hearing this, but
Wow.
it's interesting how it all ties together.
Well, maybe on the replay.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, if you're listening, I'm thinking of you.
Yes. Well, maybe catching that on the replay. Well, memories are really tricky thing. from, coming from a background in psychology and kind of looking at how we understand memory to work and how memory doesn't work, right? It's really interesting to though also understand the power though that we have in actually reframing memories, influencing memories, not creating false memories per se, but it's actually quite healing to be able to take a look at a before and reframe it with your now more evolved self, right? The self that's not in it, that maybe didn't have the tools or, whatever it was that you're bringing forward, but to then, be able to, especially difficult memories, be able to reframe from this more evolved self. And that's actually, part of the healing process. Yeah. Because we don't remember everything, like it's not like a movie where it's all on one track, right? And then, the memory just, goes and finds it and brings it up. It's stored in many different ways and in different impressions, usually a lot of sensory stuff. So, it's just when it's called back up from its different pieces and then kind of put together in a gestalt, and then the brain also fills in the gaps that aren't there with whatever. Right. And so it's like we can only trust our memories so far, because we actually recreate it every time we bring it up. It's a recreation in a way, and sometimes it's created anew. And so memory is a really funny thing, I can, and also, kind of how we think about it and do it. I could tell you stories of my childhood that were about a childhood of lack and poverty. And, I can tell that story. I can also tell the story of a child that, spent most of her time in the woods and with the animals and was really rich and had deep spiritual connection, right? All of these things. And they're both true, but we tend to also get, I think, really selective with our story. It's like, which story is going to serve me right now? Which story is serving my story right now in terms of either letting myself move forward or holding myself back, that sort of thing. So it's because it's this beautiful mosaic, and the brain will deliver it up in whatever way is kind of most expedient in the ways that serve. So it's yeah. I feel like if you want to do an exercise, there's this exercise that I learned from Jean Houston, and it is about actually, what is it about, Mara? It's about kind of bringing the reality of that sensory imagery in so you can feel how powerful it is. And when she was teaching us, it was in service of like helping you move forward, like on a project or manifestation or something like that. It was like laying the groundwork for that. But I can see, it's just coming up for me right now how it could also be really powerful in helping with connecting to and laying down, or how do we want to say it? When used in tandem with memory to help give it more juice, right? And I think we're well served if we actually can juice up those memories, those parts that will serve us now. Danielle, I think you were talking earlier about, being, as a child, and what was that like as a child? How did that feel to play? And, yeah. And there's, so you guys game to do this exercise? And then I think maybe we can even weave it into.
Can I kind of reflect back kind of what I'm hearing? It almost feels like you're saying we're gonna like remember something, but we're also gonna like really remember like, what did it look like? What did it feel like? What are we hearing? What are we seeing? What are we touching? What are we like tasting? What are we
Yeah,
smelling?
we might get there, but this exercise kind of lays the groundwork for being able to do that.
Yeah.
Does that make
Okay.
sense? Okay.
Yeah, I feel
Great.
like though that I've done something similar in the space of when I'm really trying to remember something, I do try to like use my senses to remember, and that like
Mhm.
helps me get more into that space, into that memory.
Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause the sensory memory is so important. Okay. To the story. All right. So I'd like you to close your eyes if you like. And I would like you to smell concrete after the rain. I would like you to see close up of a ladybug as if you're looking at it through a magnifying glass. Sorry. I would like you to see the way the light is changing on the top of the tree as the sun goes down. I would like you to touch the top of a newborn baby's head. It has just really soft, fine hair, perhaps. I'd like you to listen to the breath of someone that you love sleeping. I'd like you to smell chocolate chip cookies that just came out of the oven. I'd like you to see the dust dancing in the windows right after you've swept the floor. I'd like you to taste ketchup. I'd like you to feel your hands digging in wet sand. I'd like you to smell the smell of an aftershave or a perfume, perhaps some adult around you when you were a child. I'd like you to see a stadium full of people doing the wave. I'd like you to hear an intricate piece of music, just whichever one arises. Allow yourself to really hear it. And then hear the crunch of a carrot as you're eating it. A raw one, of course. And if you just pulled it out of the garden, you can smell the soil on it. You can taste the soil, hear the crunch. Feel the sun on your face. I'd like you to hear your sneakers squeak on the floor. And then when you're ready, come on back. Hmm. Sensory memory is really strong. It can also trigger others too, right? And hopefully you had experience and could connect to each of those things. You know, sometimes people are like, never done that, but that's okay.
I had a couple of visceral reactions.
Yeah.
Digging your hands in the sand. I was like, hey, that's great. Oh man, I hate getting that sand on my nail. Jeez, oh Pete, how do I get that out? And then eating the carrot. Oh man, that's great. And oh, that grindy dirt in there. I'm like, why did you go there?
Yeah, well, that also speaks to like, you know, the preferences and the good and the bad, right? It's just like, well, it just is. That's what it smells like. That's what it feels like, you know. It doesn't necessarily have to be good or bad. It's just, you know, that's the experience.
I
That's what
started
was so
tearing up
great
at,
about it. Exactly.
what was that?
That's what was so great about it. Because my own answer was, hey, it is what it is. You can like the dirt or not like it, you know, or the taste or whatever, but that's what happens when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started tearing up at the one about listening to somebody you love sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
I had one reaction at the end when right before like the very end with the sneaker. Because usually when I hear that, like I'm probably the most clumsy person I know. So I'm usually falling or about to fall. And I'm like, no. Like in my mind, it was funny. I had to catch myself from falling when I heard the squeak. So
Brains.
right.
Brain. Trying to help you out. Do you want to try to take that into a memory? You want to try to play around with that, or you guys want to come at it from a different angle? What do you want to do? This is your playtime too.
What do we do in the memory?
Mm. we can, as Danielle said earlier, we can, bring it up, and then we can bring more sensory information into the memory to help give it a little more life and fullness. I mean, I would recommend, if we do that, go that way, that we play with memories that are happy, that feel good, not to bypass necessarily, but when you are bringing in the sensory information, unless you're in a fully, like a healing container, I would say part of what I know that I could use more of, and I know that this comes up for my clients, is, of course, because of the way that we remember, the negative things have such a stronger imprint on us. It's part of our survival mechanism, right? So if anything kind of threatens us in any way, we really imprint that, we remember that, we build whole strategies around, not to have that happen again, right? And the good stuff, it just kind of flows through. It's harder to really get it to imprint on our nervous systems and into our memories. So we could play around a little bit with that, bringing some imprinting of the positive into a childhood memory. I know I had an experience as I was working through my process. This was probably a couple of months ago, but I was sitting and I was just like, I was doing some reparenting of my inner child, right? So kind of parenting where the lack of the real parenting was. And one of the things that I did was, I was just like, I was settling in, and I'm just like, what was it really like for her being that child, right? Really, what was her experience? And what I did was I tuned into, just how I would play, and I tuned into a point in time where I was just sitting and playing, by myself. And then I started to like experience her from like how she was experiencing that moment, right? She being me, of course, but how she was experiencing that in that moment. And I had just such a powerful experience, because and as I was looking at her eye, and it was like tuning into what was happening inside of this child, I got this sense of this, I don't know how to describe it other than the word purity came up. There was just a purity there of, of spirit. There was just like this purity there. And then I was just like, oh, and she's still there, she that is still there. I mean, the fact that I could touch into that and feel that means that that's still even accessible within me now. And it was very powerful to tuck into that, because I think the story that I was telling myself about, how I was experiencing things was quite a bit more morose than that, right? Or sometimes we, tend to think, yeah, it was a great childhood, and then when you sit in there, it's just like, oh, there's all this anxiety, and there's she can tuck in. But I mean, we could try it. It would be something just we would do on the fly here. So if you like. So maybe you think about either a specific memory, or something just as simple as like what I did, of just kind of tuning into yourself at a time when you were playing or enjoying yourself, right? So and maybe it's a generalized memory. Maybe it's not of a specific time, right? So bring something to mind, a space in that youth, in that youngness, where you are absorbed in what you're doing, where you are in flow and enjoying yourself. And find that child. So just find that space and time. And allow yourself to really enter into that little being. looking through their eyes. And seeing what they're seeing. What do you see? And try to bring as much detail into what you're seeing as possible. And what are you feeling with your skin? What's the tactile things that you're feeling? What are you doing? How are you perhaps moving? What are you touching? What does it feel like? What are you wearing? If you're wearing anything, and how do those clothes feel on you? What do they feel like? What's the texture? What are the colors? And then begin to hear what's around you as you're still continuing to see and have this felt sense of touch. What are some of the sounds? And maybe you see even the sound of your own voice, or the sound of others, or the sounds in the environment. What sounds are present in this experience? What smells are there in the environment? You smell. And are there tastes that go along with that smell? Are you thinking about anything, or are you just in the moment? Are you just in enjoyment? And what does it feel like to be you having this experience? Now bring that felt sense of that younger you, feeling yourself now sitting here as the adult version. And see if you can still find that feeling, whatever it is. Is this something that's familiar? Or is this a feeling that perhaps needs some remembrance? and some bringing up into the present. And with the next few breaths, just feel yourself just even more in your present state, in your adult state. When you're ready, you can open your eyes if they're closed. Come on back into the now. Any like embodiment things that happened for you? What kind of was happening in your body as you were moving through that process, especially when you brought things forward into the present? What maybe was showing up for you, or what came up?
I think it ended up being just like a feeling of lightness. So like not having any sort of additional pressure, just like light and like being.
I think, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but one of the things I remembered, I remembered climbing a tree when I was younger, and I used to like climb on the fence to climb on the tree. But I remember something I didn't remember that I remembered when I was in the memory was trying to put my tennis shoes on the tree and like hearing it slip on the tree and like that noise that the tennis shoes kind of makes on the bark. And like, yeah, like that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. And I'm not after anything in particular either. Just, yeah.
I remembered myself as a kid, in our little postage stamp backyard in the city, laying on the grass, and how I just laid there, could feel the grass and the sunshine on my body, and had nothing to think about. You just lay there and experience it. And then when I came out to the present, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I don't, even if I go lay on the grass, it would be like thinking about 52 other things while I'm doing it. Yeah. Not emptying my mind and just being like, hey, just experience the moment. Yeah.
I think for me, what I kind of eventually realized with my memory, I was like maybe like 4 or 5 playing outside, is that like I just didn't care. It wasn't like a thought in my head about like what other people were thinking if they saw me outside, like running around or, talking to like, imaginary friends or like other, maybe things that people didn't see. And just like how freeing that is, kind of going off of what Brianna said about like feeling like lighter and whatnot. And how much like as an adult, like in my adult body, that is like an active thought, like in my head, right? Like if I meditate outside, what are the neighbors going to think, or, like things like that.
Yeah.
I did kind of like an online meditation retreat where I was doing a walking meditation in front of my apartment building. I was totally thinking about that while I was doing it. I'm all like, they're going to think I'm freaking crazy. But yeah, it'd be so nice to recapture that feeling like when you were a kid and you just don't care,
Yeah.
It's funny, Mara, as you said, what are you wearing? But like first that was like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Because like little kid me would have been like, what? I don't know, it doesn't matter. Like it was so interesting to be like, that's irrelevant.
But That's
was gonna-
funny because I only wore one pair of pants at 4 that my mom had to like repeatedly wash. So when you said that, my mind was like, oh, I already know what I'm wearing. Like,
No. Whether or not you stink is irrelevant. Hmm. Yeah.
One of the things I recognize that I don't remember and I don't connect with is the sound of my voice. And I think that has to do with like right now, or I guess like in the present, the sound of my voice is constantly going through my head when I'm thinking. And I don't know what did I sound like at 5? Like I didn't have that connection.
Mhm.
I think I found something interesting. I was in my memory, I was a younger, I don't know, probably 8 or so, coloring. And what was odd that came up for me was that I was, even at that age, trying to be perfect in the lines, meticulous, very detail focused, and that I was seeking praise. I kind of questioned after I had that memory and was trying to pull more from it. Like, that's very interesting because I still do the same sort of thing now. I still am very, very hard on myself. And what motivates me is external, sorry.
That's okay.
What motivates me is external validation. So it was very interesting that memory of such an early age, I was doing that. And it kind of made me question like, oh, I wonder, when that or if that flipped. Like, that's just so weird that
Yeah.
recognizing it as a childhood pattern though is I didn't ever expect that to come up, but I could smell like the crayons and I could hear my mom in the kitchen cooking dinner, and it was very much there. It was just very interesting that I didn't have that it already seemed like there was some taintedness to it.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I don't know if it means anything, but when I was climbing trees when I was younger, I was pretty much trying to escape things. So that was like my happy little escape place. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, yeah. I was thinking, Brianna, what you were saying about voice and what you sound like. And that was actually one of the things that came up in my memory when I was doing this before, was my voice and how I was just doing a little da, 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 I was playing and I was just singing a little ditty. Yeah, just singing a little ditty. Oh. That freedom and that openness is, I don't know if y'all are like me. I was like feeling some nostalgia for that, right? But there's nothing stopping us from from having that now, right? Of being able to drop into that space. And yeah, it's not something that's like only in the past available to us. It's, something that we can access if we want to. I was remembering not that long ago how as a teenager, I used to just like listen to music, right? You just listen to music. You'd put that, and you'd be there with the music and you were learning the music and you just listen to it. And sometimes the same thing over and over and over again, right? But you just sit and listen to music. And, and I was just like, when I listen to music now, it's like the backdrop to other things that I'm doing, right? How often do I actually sit and just listen to music? And I think it's incredibly rare now. Yeah, I spend hours doing that.
I did notice too that there was some overlap between things I do now that I enjoy and the tree climbing. Like I will go for walks now and I will sit out in the forest and like listen to the leaves rustle and kind of like soak up the sun and soak up the nature, and like that's a similar thing that I was also doing then. So
Mhm.
that's probably a good thing that I still do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Now you have to climb one, Danielle.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of feeling like I'm on the hook now. I gotta go. I gotta find a tree that's easier to climb though.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Mm. Mm. So how can, it's so much easier said than done, right? How can we bring that freedom, those feelings that we bring in remembrance, how can we bring that into our day-to-day now?
I think, what's coming to mind for me is earlier, I think you had mentioned about like saying yes to things.
Mm.
And I think that's like a big thing for me, at least. Like if the thought of like wanting to go and meditate in the backyard pops up, saying yes to that instead of like, entertaining these other thoughts and like fears and judgments that are popping up. And I think even like Danielle had mentioned, her friend being like, hey, we're just going to go randomly do this. And it's like saying yes in that moment and going and doing it. I
Yeah,
think
walking in the rain, it's fun.
yeah,
You tried it.
it creates a lot of freedom, right? And there's playfulness in that. So a lot of it, I think for me is like saying yes, not overthinking it and just being like, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also gathering data when we do that of how the world isn't necessarily looking at you and judging you and having thoughts and ideas about you and what you're doing, Yeah. They might, but if they do, then you care less, right? Yeah.
I think they're just jealous.
Huh? Yes. Playing.
I mean,
Yes.
let's be honest. I think most adults really want to play more and they just don't. It's like unacceptable in our society or something. I don't know. It's stupid. It's really stupid.
I think part of it though is learning what play is
Oh,
and
I
what
guess
it
the other
looks
way.
like as an adult, right? Yeah. Go ahead, Acadia.
Oh no, I'm sorry. When I was selecting a memory, I was realizing all of the memories I was toggling through were like me just kind of putzing, like just playing with a little thing, or one I used to call it playing dentist, and I would use a stick and pick the gravel out of the cracks in the sidewalk, and I would call it playing dentist. I don't know. And like it was just like sitting and kind of doing almost nothing. And now those feel like really important moments. And at the time it was nothing. And I probably went, Mom, I'm bored. But but the peace and the quiet and the leaning into that nothing, a little bit of a theme there.
Oh yeah.
It's like kind of following your urges or your path, or you're like, just like, this is the thing I want to do. I'm gonna just go do it.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really interesting approach, because I feel like I typically go for this mindset of like, oh, I need to set time aside to do this. Like, I need to make sure to structure in the play, which is completely counterintuitive, right? But really what it is just like, do it in the moment and bring in that spontaneity. Don't don't second guess things and just go with it and see what happens. Because otherwise, scheduled playtime is never going to come.
And then when it does, maybe you don't feel like playing right then, right? You know, yeah. I think most of it about play is spontaneity. Mm.
It does feel like as adults, we have so much structure and not enough of that random free time. And yeah, I like spontaneity. I've been writing a lot of notes, and that's definitely on there.
Spontaneity. Hmm. So I was feeling the kind of the pull to come back to our card too. I'm not sure why, but just kind of remember our remembrance, remembering the energy that we're working with. Remembering love, loss, and healing. Mhm. So kind of bring your awareness into your body. So feeling your body sitting in the room. And then bringing your awareness to the room around you. It's kind of feeling yourself situated there in your space. And then while you're feeling that, bring your attention, your awareness to the screen in front of you. And then your connection to others through the screen. Oop, there it went. And then feeling that new field that we create, right? As we did last week, that new field that we create when we do that out of there. And just feel yourself kind of hollow out. Just let your thoughts just kind of move out. Just feel yourself just kind of hollow out. So that the space that's pervading you and your environment and pervading that field that we're all connected to, just hollowing out and just becoming, just being in that space. And if you're game to do a little, I call kind of soft channeling, allow yourself to kind of drop into that emptiness. And when you feel like there's something coming through that needs that about remembrance to be said, you can unmute, or you can even unmute beforehand, and as long as you don't have a lot of background noise. But I'd like you to, as you're sitting in that field and just allowing this concept of remembrance to be there, to be held in this field, if something arises, I'd like you to speak as remembrance. So you would begin like, I am remembrance, and then just allow whatever wants to come through to come through. So speaking as remembrance, I am remembrance. I am remembrance. I am a twinkle of a star that reflects in the pond, that brings our awareness to the vastness of who we are. I am remembrance. Calls forth that connection to the greater whole. I am remembrance, a facet, a glimmer, a reflection of the great chain of light. I am remembrance.
I am remembrance. I exist in everything. I came from everything, and I am going to everything.
Yeah, I am remembrance. I remember love lost and love gained.
I am remembrance. I am the waves hitting against the seawall after a pebble splashed into the middle of the lake.
I am remembrance. I am the coming back to membership. I am remembrance of belonging, of deep belonging.
I am remembrance. I remember the need to envelop myself between layers and remember once again of who I am authentically and of the tools that I've always had at my disposal, but not always remembered.
Yes, I am remembrance. I remember to remember.
I am remembrance. Remember to let go.
I am remembrance. I am the creature in the water, swirling, spinning, becoming one with the flow of the current.
I am remembrance. I am here to remind you to engage with yourself in the present, with yourself in the past, but to engage.
I am remembrance. I am a recursive continuum.
I am remembrance. I am that light that flows in you and through you.
I am remembrance. I am the wisdom of the ancestors that flows in your blood. And settles in your bones.
I am remembrance. I am the one who was lost long ago.
Welcome and hail remembrance as you presence yourself in our thoughts and minds and bodies. Feel yourself taking a deep breath, sending some gratitude into our field that we share with one another. And then feeling yourself come more solidly into your own body, feeling yourself in your own space. And really fully presencing yourself in your own space. Wow. So why don't we check out by kind of going around and just a word or two of either what you're taking with you or just an expression of the space that you're in this moment. Any order is fine.
Well, I think I still have lots of work to do. I had a pretty visceral something about the love lost part
Mm.
that I need to work on.
Mm. Or just let it be there, present in you. Yeah.
Oops.
I am taking remember to experience the experience.
Mm.
I'm taking remembrance of presence.
I think I'm taking that the practice of remembrance can be really expansive, and kind of, maybe making that something to do a little more often, and seeing where like that can take me and what it can kind of bring into my life.
I think I'm taking that concept of just trying to say yes, trying to be spontaneous, not question things, and welcome play into the present as much as possible.
I think I'm there with Ashley. I think it's felt freeing. It's felt expansive. It's made me feel like I'm tapping into something else by putting sensory to it, and it's a really cool practice that I've never done before. So it's another way to tap in. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm really struck by the fact that we were able to spend so much time exploring remembrance and not dwell on loss or painful memories. I mean, I think I would have assumed that's a place this could have headed. And, certainly Mara, your guidance, but also just kind of the energy flowed in a different direction. And that's really interesting and changing the way I'm thinking about playing with memory.
Mm. Yeah. I'm taking with me, we were talking about freedom tonight and kind of bringing that feeling forward, but I'm bringing with me, no, I know I am bringing with me this remembrance that I'm already free. I am, it's not something I have to work toward. I am. Mm. Mhm. Whew. Well, anyone else? All right. Well, I encourage you, your homework this week is to play, is to, yes, is to play, to make new memories, to actually be imprinting on in the present time this sense of freedom and play and spontaneity and how it is yours, already yours, right? And also how we are held by the memories of ancestors as we do that, of those that come before, even, and that memory doesn't necessarily have to be work, right? Moving into memory there's a lot of positives that we can bring into that, a lot of support, a lot of sustenance. Even remembering that, Earth Mother provides for us, continuously, just taking it into really deep memory, or just like, remember the other day when I was able to let go. Remember that? Remember that. Okay. I hope you have a fabulous week. go ahead and unmute yourselves to say goodnight. And I really enjoyed spending this time with you guys tonight. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you,
Good
Mara.
night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thinking of you tomorrow, Courtney.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Night.
Bye, everyone.